Ladies and gentlemen, I can't stress this enough. We need Khamzat Chimaev to return to the octagon as soon as physically possible.
Broadcasting live from an undisclosed location. This is the Community MMA with your host, Chris Cross.
Yes! Yes! Let's go, baby!
Dana White privilege.
Let's go, baby! Baby! Baby!
When it comes to the UFC, no fighter, not even close, garners more attention than your boy Khamzat Chimaev. I mean, we see this on our own channel. People are commenting like crazy, want to know when is he returning. Others are saying he shouldn't return yet. He's got to get, physically and mentally healthy. But how long can that last? How long can we keep going through this with Khamzat? Oh, he'll fight later in the year. Oh, he'll fight next year. He'll fight a year from now, 8 months from now. The prime window for a fighter doesn't last that long. I mean, you're talking like you enter the prime at like 27, 28 years old. By the time you hit 34, 35, which is right about where McGregor is at, you start to fall off quickly. So even if you fight twice a year, you got 10 fights in your prime, max. If Khamzat keeps this up, he's going to get like 5 or 6 in his prime. The time is now. He's in the prime window. He's ready to roll. And he keeps having setback after setback after setback. And that can't continue for Khamzat. He's got to get himself right, and he's got to get himself into a fight. Now, you've heard me talk about UFC 300. That would be the big opportunity for Khamzat to return, right, at UFC 300. But will he be ready in a few months? Does he want to fight someone that isn't a champion? Will they really put him against Leon Edwards after taking away his ranking in the welterweight division? I don't see that happening. I don't see the UFC putting Khamzat Chimaev in a title fight in the welterweight division when he missed weight by so much the last time out. But at the same time, what other options do the UFC have right now? Jon Jones is telling you he's not fighting. You still have Alex Pereira out there, but who will he fight? Who's worthy in that division? Today they announced Jan Gionin versus Zhang Weili as one of the title fights, and it's like the UFC better come big with UFC 300 after talking all this stuff. They better come big, and if they want to come big, they need to find a way to get Khamzat on the card. You don't have McGregor. You don't have Islam Makhachev. You might get Leon Edwards, but against who? So the fact is the UFC needs Khamzat right now. And it needs to be for a title. If he's going to headline this thing, it's got to be for the title. And there's no guarantees that any of this happens. There's no guarantee that he's even ready by then. And the problem, too, is you got Ramadan smack in the, you're in the middle of Ramadan when this thing takes place. So, it's becoming more and more unlikely that that's not the best course of action for Khamzat. You can't be in the middle of Ramadan fighting for the title. Have other fighters done it? Probably. But you're not going to get the best performance from Khamzat if that's the case. So the UFC is going to have to muster up something here. Something big and tell us to wait. It's going to be big. It's going to be huge. The first fight on the card is going to be bigger than some other pay-per-view fights. All that, and I'm exaggerating a little bit, but this is the talk we're getting from the UFC. So we're all eagerly waiting for that big fight announcement where we're like, whoa. Wow. And I have a feeling we're going to be waiting and waiting and waiting, and it's never going to come. We might get one good fight. But we want to see a fight like where a Shavkat has a chance at a title against Leon Edwards. We want to see Khamzat against Alex Pereira. These are the things we want to see happen because these are two guys that are the future of the sport. But is the time now? Does the UFC rush them in there? Does that make sense? Khamzat is also on record as saying, I want to fight for the middleweight title when these two guys are done. And they're not going to be ready to turn things around in 3 months, in 90 days. That's not going to happen. So what do you do? I don't know. I don't know what you do with Khamzat. Then there's Jon Jones, all up in the news today. He's not buying the hype of Tom Aspinall. And why would he? Because Tom Aspinall's a worthy opponent. Why wouldn't Jon Jones want to fight Stipe? You see, Jon Jones is good at holding on to the belt forever. And it's unfortunate that he sustained an injury. It's unfortunate he couldn't fight against, in his last fight, he couldn't fight against Stipe. He had to pull out. But then what's he going to do? Now he's going to fight Stipe, then sit on the title for another year, and then maybe fight somebody. You got Jailton Almeida coming up. You got Alex Pereira talking about going up. The heavyweight division is moving. But Jon Jones always has a way of slowing everything down. And some of these prime contenders that are ready to go right now are never going to get the opportunity to fight for the belt if Jon Jones continues to hold the belt. Now, listen, other than Khamzat, and obviously there's a huge argument to be said that Jon Jones is the best in the world, and he is. But, on the do list, that's more about my favorite fighter. So Jon Jones is number 2 behind Khamzat. Pound for pound, Jones is probably number 1. Not even a question. To get the light heavyweight and then go up over 20 pounds, put on 30, 40, 50 pounds, whatever, and get the heavyweight title, that's ridiculous. I mean, the guy is the best on the planet at what he does. But there's too many guys coming up in the heavyweight division. And what did I tell you? This stuff is going to start happening because these guys are hungry, man. This isn't the old days where they want to wait 3 years for a title shot. When Jon Jones is ready. He doesn't want to unify the belt. And I don't even agree with these interim fights. I really don't. The bottom line is Jon Jones needs to fight Tom Aspinall, whether he's an interim champion, which is ridiculous, or not. He's next in line. The guy has proven himself. He's beaten some big fighters. He has a blemish or two on his record, but who besides Jon Jones doesn't? Even Jon Jones has a blemish. In a fight he easily won, got disqualified, or else he's undefeated. He's basically undefeated. But he's not going to be able to hold up the heavyweight division. I'm just trying to tell you right now, that is not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. Because these fighters are going to be knocking on the door and saying, what's going on here? We want to fight. And it's hard to see fighters go after Jon Jones verbally, but it's going to happen because he's holding on to the belt. That's the bottom line. And it's not the light heavyweight division. There are guys that are worthy to fight for the title right now. Make no mistake about it. Now, as we jump right into the Q&A today, early on the show, because it's going to be a quick one. At Andrew Bordeaux says, when it comes to Bo Nickel, I think you should be fighting a tougher opponent. The UFC isn't typically the place to cut your teeth. And he's shown he can be a can crusher already. Just my opinion, although he said himself that he's on his first contract, so he doesn't mind taking it a little slow. Yeah, but you can't blame Bo Nickel because if he goes undefeated on the first contract, guess what happens at renewal time? You get a big contract extension, new contract, then you start going after it. Nothing wrong with that. And this is a fighter taking his own career in his hands. He's putting it in his hands. We always talk about fighter pay. You got to control your own destiny in terms of pay. You got to market yourself. And how do you market yourself? You schedule 4 or 5 fights against guys you can beat and you KO them or submit them in the first or second round. And that's how you get a big contract. Don't listen to these other fighters. Only listen to anyone else when it comes to this stuff. They need to schedule fights they can win. And then it's re-up time. You dig? That's what Bo Nickel is trying to do, and you can't blame him right now. At Brannis, something says easy win for Alexander Rakic. I don't know about easy, man. First fight back. Look at what happened to Yuri against Pereira. First fight back. A little sluggish, a little nervous. Ring rust is what they call it. It was definitely evident in that fight. Yuri's going to be better in this fight. Rakic has to go through the same thing. So I think Rakic is going to lose that one. At Gamebred says, Arman will be champ soon. Really? Islam is running, keeps rejecting to fight him. He don't want to risk a loss before he retires or moves up in weight. And I can see that. I can see Islam wanting to move up in weight, and it's tough for him because Islam versus Edwards would be perfect for UFC 300. That would get people talking. But it doesn't seem like now that's going to happen. And again, what are the possibilities for the UFC when it comes to this thing? I don't know. At me.youtube and says, did you know Khamzat is ill and looks horrible in his last photos? Let's just see how long he can get healthy first to speculate on when or who he's going to fight. Never know how bad it is. Could be career ending. You know, what he had before affected him for close to 2 years. Yeah, but see what I'm saying? We can't keep going through this. We can't, or else we're going to look back and say, man, he missed a boat. You got to take some risks sometimes. You got to get a fight scheduled and start getting your mind right. Because when guys have fights scheduled, it does something for them. Like Volkanovski talked about this in detail. Like how hard it is when you get done with a fight and you have no other fight scheduled. It's like it feeds you when you have a fight scheduled, even if it's 6 months out. Regardless of what you're going through today, 6 months out, you're going to be fine. 3 months out, you're really entering a hard training camp. But to sit around like this and let everything pass you by and think the UFC is just going to give you a title fight because you beat an unranked fighter in the division, it's not going to happen. Maybe it's going to happen. As a Khamzat fan, I want it to happen. I'll probably tell you otherwise later, to be honest with you, because I believe in the guy. But just looking from the UFC's perspective, I don't see that happening. Khamzat's got to get back on the horse as soon as possible. At March, it says Sugar will be champ. Sugar will put a stamp on this one. He already is champ. Yeah, he's going to beat Cheeto Vera, I think, this time around. The last loss was a fluke. The guy should be undefeated. At Damon Archery says, I don't think Khamzat can beat Duplessis. Man, I don't know. But I will admit
Broadcasting live.
that it is a little more nerve-wracking to see him face a Duplessis or a Strickland now than it was just 2 or 3 years ago. Because Gilbert Burns gave him a run for his money. Usman gave him a run for his money. But I'll still make 2 arguments. And it's not like excuses. They're just arguments. He's not a welterweight fighter. That's why he struggled against Burns. He got injured against Usman because he was dominating him in the first round and had to just squeak out a victory in the second and third. Could have very easily lost that fight after hurting the hand. You know, so you can look at it one of 2 ways. You can look at it and say, oh, he barely got past Usman, or you can say, man, he injured his hand and still beat Usman. Depends on how you want to look at it. But Khamzat, make no mistake, is the real deal. And yes, he needs to get healthy. And when he gets healthy, he's going to be a problem for a lot of people. It's just as simple as that. Khamzat is going to be a problem for a lot of people. And when he gets that title, just like Islam, he's going to be looking upward. And if he goes in there and gets a light heavyweight division title, the way it's stacked up right now with Alex Pereira, Yuri Prochazka, Alexander Rakic, and that's just scratching the surface. You can even throw Magomed Ankalaev in there. Because I think you're going to see a guy in Ankalaev that just kind of comes back just hungry this week against Johnny Walker because, you know, he had the stalemate, the tie against Blachowicz, or he would be champ right now. Then he came back against Johnny Walker, and that fight got stopped early due to no fault really of either fighter, just the fight had to be stopped. So this guy has had 2 situations where he didn't lose, but he didn't win. And the UFC was definitely not happy with his performance against Jan Blachowicz, so he's got to do something. And I feel for Johnny Walker in this one. This is why I like this matchup to start the year. I believe, not that it's an easy victory, because no victory in the UFC is easy, but I'm pretty much feeling really good that we're going to start the year 1-0 in the main event when Magomed Ankalaev KOs Johnny Walker. He can't afford to get decisions now. He should have went in there and finished Jan Blachowicz, but it didn't happen. It is what it is, but it didn't happen. And now he's going to be hungry. And a hungry fighter is a scary fighter. And that's what you're going to get from Jan Blachowicz. But listen now, UFC 297 right around the corner. The middleweight title's on the line. About a 8-9 days from now, we'll have a definitive UFC middleweight champion. And then maybe, just maybe, Khamzat enters the news again, and we got a big title fight coming up. We'll see. All we can do is hope. All we can do is hope. For now, this your boy Chris Cross. I hope you have a great day, and God bless. As always, peace.